Introduction. Near Albany, New York, June 2005. The backhoe's teeth bit into the pavement, shattering the silence of early morning with a loud roar. Skies were clear and the sun shone brightly. The day would be hot. Because it was Sunday, businesses were closed. Workers could use the backhoe to cut across the paved driveway, dig a trench, lay sewer pipe, and fill the trench again without disturbing workweek traffic. At least, that was the plan. The backhoe scooped up dirt and dumped it on a growing mound of debris. Soil, rocks, and gravel spilled down the sides. A round object rolled down the pile and landed at the boots of a workman. He bent and picked it up. With a gloved hand, he brushed it off. He turned it over and over. Suddenly, he found himself staring into eye sockets and cupping the hinges of a jaw. This was a skull. The workman wanted to know more about the skull, but he had to get back to work. He carefully wrapped it in a handkerchief and laid it in the shade of some nearby trees. Then he returned to the backhoe. Not long after, town historian Kevin Franklin arrived at the site. He'd heard about the digging and wanted to take a closer look. Find anything interesting? Franklin yelled over the noise of the backhoe. Just found a skull, the worker yelled back. He pointed in the direction of the trees. Franklin promptly picked up the skull and removed it from the handkerchief. The workers shut down the machines to take a lunch break. Before eating, the men gathered around Franklin. I was called to this same place in 1998 when a female skeleton in a coffin was found, Franklin said later. So I knew this new skull might mean there were more skeletons there. We need to call in archaeologists to investigate this properly. Franklin reached for his cell phone and started making calls. He contacted the police, an engineering company, some town officials, and a representative from the State Historic Preservation Office. All the while, questions about the skull and the site formed. Is this skull a stray find? Where is the rest of the skeleton? Was the person murdered? Are there more bones? Could this be the site of a lost cemetery? Slamming car doors and loud voices soon filled the air. The police, looking for obvious signs of trauma, studied the skull. They noted none. They also had no record of a missing person. They didn't believe the site was a crime scene, but the coroner had to make that determination, and he was busy and at least an hour away. The four archaeologists, scientists who study historic people and cultures, arrived. They worked for HartGen Archaeological Associates, a company with expertise in excavating historic sites. The engineering firm had called them. The four scientists dashed over to look at the skull. Aaron Klein, a bioarchaeologist, inspected it especially closely. What bioarchaeologists do? Bioarchaeologists are scientists who study human remains. They specialize in excavated bones. Bioarchaeologists look at details such as the length and width of the bones, the appearance of bones where muscles were attached, and the overall condition of the bones. These observations reveal the age, sex, race, and health of the people before they died. After several minutes, she told everyone the skull was very old. She estimated the person had died 100 or more years ago. She added that judging by the bone structure, the skull was probably from an African American person. The four archaeologists jumped into the trench and began investigating the layers of soil. How archaeologists read soil layers. Soil builds in layers over time. Wind, worms, and human activity all play a role in changing the layers of the land. Archaeologists carefully scrape away each level of dirt using small tools. They study artifacts such as glass shards and iron nails and bone pieces. Artifacts help archaeologists understand the culture of the different peoples who lived at the site. Archaeologists also study the soil itself. When someone in the past shifted the soil, it would have changed color or texture or both. So when they find dark stains or a change in the type of soil, archaeologists know some kind of activity has taken place. They dig these features separately to figure out what happened. The police promptly ordered the archaeologists out of the hole. No one was allowed to do anything until the coroner came and did his work. Only the coroner could officially declare the site a place for study and not a crime scene. The archaeologists returned to the skull, taking it and settling in the shade of the trees out of the hot sun. 3 hours later, the coroner finally arrived. He talked with the police and to the archaeologists. He looked at the skull, and he too recognized it was old. He determined the site was not a crime scene. The archaeologists, trowels in hand, eagerly returned to the trench. They scraped the soil along its sides and bottom. Soon they found dark stains indicating the presence of at least two more graves. Perhaps there were more graves still. Town officials agreed to postpone construction so the archaeologists could look for more graves.